Good morning, my Florida Garden Escape channel, and welcome back. I am happy to have you guys here. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been with us through everything, glad to have you guys. It's been a super crazy day. We transplanted yesterday our Santa Rosa plum tree and our roses. So what we're going to be doing today is going over transplanting, what we've already transplanted, what's upcoming. We're going to go over a lot, so there's going to be a lot in this video. But what we're going to go ahead and do now is show you guys the transplantation of our roses, along with what we had to do additionally with our fruit tree, so that way everything would be, so that way the growth for the plum tree would come out can't even talk today, I swear. Magnificent. But let's go ahead and jump into that. Now, before we do, guys, don't forget to hit a like and subscribe down below. Don't forget to hit that bell so that way you don't miss out on any of our new videos. And let's go ahead and get into it. Do here is pretty much go through and make sure all this gets separated, because I don't want any extra weeds. As you can see here, I'm separating it all, shaking it all out, getting things like this out, things that just do not belong, the extra weeds, as I don't want it coming back into the area. Alright, now let's put this into the hole, and we shall be good. Just as you're planting everything, a 3-year-old lets out the chickens. Ha! So that's how we went about transplanting our plum tree and our roses. Now, what I'm walking out here to do is show you guys what happened when I went to do our pest control. So before we get into that, just really quick. So we did a pest control as when the storm came through, we ended up getting a lot of worms. They got really bad actually. So we took care of it yesterday, but when worms do not play, guys, like they will destroy, they will eat and eat and eat and consume everything up. So our red ear cabbage that was looking so luscious and beautiful, and now has puncture holes in it and just looks like they just wreaked havoc on it. Unlike our Russian kale, where they did not leave a single leaf piece on the limbs. And I'll go ahead and flip you guys around and show you that now. So as you can see, they did tear up the red Russian kale, which is right there, and then the red ear cabbage, which is there. There is no more worms on, so we did take care of that, thank goodness. So now it's just repairing and continuing the growth from here on out. Now, what also took place during the time of us doing pests, I was just spraying everything, getting everything done, and then I hear this loud bang. Couldn't figure out what it was. Come to check on the greenhouse and see what it was. This happened. This big around fell and hit it and broke it out. But as you can see, we were able to push some of it back into place. Thankfully, these panels, they slide out, so we were able to get it pushed up some. But for it to fully go back into place, what we'll have to do is we'll have to take this part and push it out just to get it back in there. And I'm hoping it's not too damaged and it'll go back in there without a problem. And we got to do it pretty quickly, because if we don't, any upcoming rain that we're going to have is going to get in there. And I want to try and keep the greenhouse a dry area, as we're now pushing to do all our seedlings in the greenhouse. We're no longer going to be using the grow tent inside, so that way we can get some room inside. And I can use it for like more of a drying station than anything. But I'm going to go ahead and flip you guys around, show you what we have going on in the greenhouse, what we're getting ready to have upcoming. And then also, I do want to inform you guys that we have tons of transplanting to do, like no joke. Like we have tomatoes we got to transplant, we got watermelons we got to transplant, we got cucumbers we need to transplant, we got herbs we got to transplant, and then we also got to do some moving around of some of our pots, like these pots that we have back here. They have to get moved out, as they need their light, they need the sun, and they'll be able to handle the outsideness, the humidity in that, as the humidity in here is a little higher than outside, as because it's our greenhouse. This is where we start our seedlings and that, and where we store all our stuff. Now, with everything, when I say transplant, I mean we're transplanting seedlings. We're going to be transplanting a lot of different things that we're going to need to be using, harvesting from, and all that through this next few seasons, from spring, which we're already, I swear it feels like summer already, which it probably is already summer. I lose track of the times. I lose track of the days. Time gets away from me. Terrible at time management. But currently, we did get a lot of different things already transplanted, like our sunflowers, our petite yellow watermelons, and things like that. Now, unfortunately for the sweet peas, lesson learned, as it was my first time growing them this year. They need to be started later on in the seasons, once we get into fall, and then I can start those and put those in a more sunny area, and then they'll grow. I don't think they're liking too much of the heat. So they're not doing so grand. I don't want to show them off or anything because they're not looking too hot right now. The cucumbers, we tried a little different this year than we did last year. So this year we took the advice of rotating your crops around, changing the different layout on where you plant them. We did do that. Some of the areas where we moved some of the plants to move it around from are not liking the area that we put them in compared to where they were the previous year. They did marvelous. They grew. They were looking beautiful. But this season it's not doing so great. So I'm not sure if it's just due to the location that they're in, on why they're not doing so great, but they're not liking it. They're just, ugh. It's just, ugh. So what we're going to have to do is go through, do some compost tea, get some compost tea made up. We're going to need to feed that to the plants. We're also going to need to go through and get everything transplanted. It's going to be a crazy busy week. This last week we fought the storms. We had to clean up the yard from all the damages. Well, not damages per se, but we did have a tree fall down. But if y'all are wondering how much of damages in our local area, this is all the damages that took place. Now those damages have been repaired, it's been worked on, and everything's looking a lot better. Currently now is just us getting more prepped for the season. I know we have a lot to transplant. We're gonna knock it all out, hopefully. I'm hoping to get it all done in one day. But who knows, time will tell. We're gonna find out today if I can manage to get it all done today with you guys, or if we're gonna need a whole several day video type deal to get all this done together. As you guys can see, our blackberries are starting to change their colors, and they are starting to go to that red, from that green to that red, as you can see here. They are looking very beautiful though. Thankfully, no worms have ate on the blackberries, thank goodness. But yeah, what do you guys say? We get to doing some more transplanting, but except in the big garden instead of out here. Let's go. Alright, so what we're going to be really transplanting today, and I'm just going to quickly show you guys and really show you exactly the areas we're going to be working in. So that way you guys will get kind of the ideal, and then we can just kind of go through and get transplanting done. So I'm going to go ahead and flip you guys around and show you what we're going to do and how it's going to go about doing. So we're going to start over here in this area. We're going to go ahead and get more cucumbers transplanted along the original cucumber trellis. We are going to revert some of the cucumbers back to this area, as since they did so well here the last season. We have them down there as well, but they're not doing so great. They're not liking that area. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just because that area is just not getting enough sun, or if it's just due to it's getting not enough, pretty much not enough sunlight, pretty much is what I think it is. But what we're also going to do is we're going to also finish up the build of the tomato trellis here, a tomato trellis here, and get the rest of the tomatoes put in along here. All these will have to move, so that way we can fill this area up with tomatoes. So we got to move these over to our stakes, which is over down in that area. Now what we're also going to do is finish transplanting the rest of the tomato, some more cucumbers over here in this area, and get those staked up as well using this wood right here. We're gonna put these into the ground and use these for the cucumber trellis there. And then what we're gonna do differently this year for this, and let me just walk into some shade here. Don't want to be in the sun too much and be burned to a crisp here. So what we're gonna do differently is we're gonna, instead of staking each tomato plant individually, what we're going to do is we're going to put a board across the top of the trellis and then run string down and kind of hang it with string instead of doing an individual staking process like we did last season.
what we're doing differently this year with this is because it was a lot of a hassle individually staking them. Keep on tying them up to the stake, putting in a bigger stake to make sure they had enough room to grow up on it, and things like that was definitely a big hassle and ended up becoming a big mess, as you can see in this picture here from last year. So this year is going to be a little different from that. It did work, yes. I'm not dismissing that it didn't work or anything, because it did work. We got a lot of great tomatoes from it. We harvested a heck load from it. We made a salsa. We made diced tomatoes, preserved them. I even made a tomato paste as well from the tomatoes that we harvested. So we got a lot from the tomatoes last year. This year, my target and my goal this year for our garden season is to fill up the garden more than what we did last year, and to really compact it and use every space we have here available. Now, it is a big space, yes, that I will say, but I want to make sure we are planting enough to provide for us and then some, because this is where a lot of our food comes from, is our garden, besides these little chickens down here. So we're gonna go through, we're gonna move the stakes. Pretty much what we're gonna do is I'm pretty much gonna set y'all up to view the whole area, and then we'll go through, hash it all out. Now with transplanting, I won't go through right now and transplant, and I say this very seriously, guys. Never transplant during the hottest parts of the day. The plants do not like it, they cannot tolerate it, and those roots are very fragile. Now with transplanting, you are going to want to make sure that you do transplant when you do transplant, you are going to want to make sure you do water the first 5 days of that transplanting, so that way those plant can get adjusted to its new soil. Now if you're transplanting and it's getting ready to rain, you don't have to worry about watering, especially if you're getting a lot of rain, because that rain is filling in that moisture. And if your garden is like our garden where it's got mulch, then it's going to hold in that moisture, and it'll be able to adapt to its new soil with no problem. You'll just have to come back after at least 2-3 days and water again, to make sure it is adjusting well. Now with our transplanting we're going to be doing today, we won't be transplanting right now, so we'll end up coming back later this evening, probably around 5-6 o'clock ish, to do some more transplanting. What'll take place pretty much is I'll have you guys set up out here on the tripod, and then I'll just get to work. Now throughout the whole video you may hear a few notations, me speaking in regards to what we're exactly doing, why we're doing it, and kind of give you guys feedback along the way. Now I do always stress this a lot, guys. Anytime we have new videos or anything, I want to make sure that you guys can get the most from our videos. Like, I want to make sure that you guys are getting something from our videos to help you in your own garden or your own growing session, or whatever the case may be. We, especially me, want to inspire more people to do more growing, more gardening. It is a natural way for us to get our food source compared to buying it in store and possibly eating something that is chemically or ends up being on recall because of a disease reaching that plant. Like we had that one year of romaine lettuce being on recall due to a possible chance of salmonella. We don't want to risk getting salmonella due to people not being careful enough, and there end up being an error. So best way to get fresh food is by growing it yourself. So let's go ahead, get ready. I'm gonna get everything set up for this evening so we can get everything transplanted. So I will see you guys again in the next couple hours. Alright, my Florida Garden Escape channel, we are back. So it's already later on in this evening. Like I said, we'll come back this evening and start transplanting, but first we got to move some things around. So I'm gonna get you guys situated and we're gonna get some work done in the big garden. Let's go. So I moved the mulch away to see the ground. Now, as you guys can see, the ground here, it's not as normal sand. It is normal sand is a little bit lighter than this right here. As you can see, it's dark. It's not staying clumped up together too well, just due to there not being a lot of moisture. But with it being so dark, it's very rich with fertilization. The darker your soil, the more fertile and better it is. So we're going to go ahead and plant the black crumb, which is this right here, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to go about doing it. Now, as you guys know, the deeper the tomato plant you plant it, the more of a root system it'll have. Now, as you guys can see, due to the pot itself falling over, it did grow a little crooked, which it's okay, because these little hairs on this tomato plant are just going to be more of a root system for it. Now, normally I do say, take your cup, measure it just like this, and see where it's at. This would be just a perfect ratio. Now, as you guys can see on this side of this tomato plant, there is some bumps and grooves coming out along it, which is going to be more of a root system. So what we're going to go through here and do is I'm just going to hang it over this just like this, squeeze the bottom of the cup, and voila. Now I'm going to just slightly push this in here. What I'm going to do is turn this, and we're going to take off all these stems here. As the lower the leaves are to the ground, the more prone they are to get pests and diseases. So I'm going to remove these lower limbs. And now what I'm going to do, I'm also going to remove this weed here. Don't want that in there. Alright, now what I'm going to do is push all this soil back into here. Except that's metal. And as you guys can see, I'm burying the stem and everything here. And what it'll do is it'll create more of a root system for that tomato plant. Now, we will go through and do just like I mentioned earlier, a string for this tomato plant at a later time. Now, the soil isn't so moist, so we will need to run our water irrigation for this tomato plant, and we'll run it off and on for the next few days. Let's go ahead and go over to the others. Now, here we have 3 tomato plants, and these are going to be the Brad Atomic grape tomatoes. What I'm going to go ahead and do is move the mulch aside and get the hole prepped, and then we'll get these guys planted. Now, if you notice one thing for sure, we're giving these plants plenty of width apart from each other. So that way they have that room to grow in between each other. Alright, there we go. Now we're going to go ahead and dig our hole. Now, with this same tomato, I'm just going to go ahead and remove these leaves. Remove the weed. And now we're going to flip it over. Put it in its hole. And I'm going to slightly push this in down here. So that way, those new little hairs can grow more roots. And we're just going to bury him in there. Don't want that in there. That was a seed root, weed seed. And no, not the hemp seeds. just a little random weed like these that have seeds in the ground. Nobody get too excited there. Alright, that one's done. Now we're going to do this one. Now, when we normally rotate our plants around in the garden to see what works best for their spot, with the tomatoes, since we already knew they did so well here, we're just going to replant, make this row our tomato row, as we already know the tomatoes do really well right here. Alright, same thing again. Remove the leaves, all the lower ones, and I'm just pinching them off to take them off. I'm not using any pruners, just my own little fingers here. And now we're going to push all this soil back into here. And there we go, cover it back up. Now last one. Same steps, dig the soil out. Alright, now same thing with this one. We're going to remove all the weeds out of the cup. Remove the lower leaves. Alright, and now let's put it in the ground. There we are, just like that. And now let's fill the hole in. And voila, there we are. Alright, so we got the tomatoes in the ground. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to something else. Alright guys, so as you just seen, we just planted in the peppers. These are going to be our red Cali peppers, which is your regular red California bell peppers. And then over there, we planted the dark purple Beauty Queen eggplant. So we got those transplanted. What I'm going to go ahead and do is just swim through it, get everything transplanted, and get this knocked out. I only have probably a couple more hours of daylight, and I'm trying to get as much done as possible. So I'm gonna bring y'all along with it. Might not be a whole lot of talking, just music playing. So stick around, enjoy. Let's get the rest of this transplanted. Alright guys, so we got that cucumber transplanted, we got that cucumber transplanted, we got this one transplanted, and this one transplanted. So they're looking good so far. Now we're fixing to go ahead and get these two transplanted, and then that's going to pretty much wrap up our day until next time. So let's go ahead and get these two transplanted. Alright guys, so that is going to be it. We got everything transplanted today that we really needed to get focused on. Next transplantation, can't even talk. Next we're going to be transplanting in the greenhouse, so stay tuned guys, as that'll be our next video along with doing some more seeds. So stay tuned. I'll see you guys in a couple of days. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for joining me. And until next time, deuces.